Hey guys, in this video we're going to look at how to install Parse on our application, or in our Android application. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to parse.com. You're going to create an account, and then you're going to see this kind of dashboard right here. Then you're going to hit this create a new app button. We're going to call this app Photo Share Android. We're going to hit create. Actually, before I continue, I should mention what Parse is. So Parse is a free service owned by Facebook, and what it does is it makes it very easy for you to use the cloud for storing data. So normally if you want to store data in a database, for example, if you have some kind of user data, or if you have maybe like you want to send data from your server to a device, then you need to set that up, and you'll probably use something like PHP and MySQL, and it just takes a lot of time, and you'll generally need a completely different developer. You're going to need a web developer who has to code up an API, and then he's going to let you bind to that API using something like JSON or whatever, and it's just a huge hassle. So Parse, it simplifies all of that. Parse, it simplifies all of that by directly exposing this kind of database layer to you. So instead of having to pass JSON back and forth, Parse makes it easy to actually just kind of read in the Java object straight in from the database. You can create the queries in your Java code, but they're not your typical kind of like SQL queries where you have like select star from this database, ordering by this and where equal to that. You don't have any of that kind of junk. It's very, very seamless code that you write in Java, and it just makes everything really, really fast and easy. Now, Parse is also really great because you get analytics straight off the bat, and this is pretty cool. You get push notifications just built in. So this is great because if you wanted to set up push notifications, you would need your own server, and you would need to set up GCM or Apple push notification services, and that's just a huge hassle. And finally, the great thing about Parse is that it's platform independent. So once you create a database on Parse, you can use their iOS SDKs and you can use their Android SDKs to transfer data and send push notifications between devices. Okay, so now let's go back to Parse, and you'll notice that we have a couple of tabs up here. We have the core tab. This is where all the data in your database is stored. We have the analytics tab. You can see analytics for your app and how many people are installing it, how many people are uninstalling it, along with custom tracking events, for example. You can add in hooks in your code that basically call a function in Parse whenever a user clicks a button, for example. We have the push tab. Let me click on here. Here you can actually see the pushes that have been sent, the push notifications that have been sent, and you can send push notifications in the top right corner. We have the settings tab where you can configure various settings for your application, and then we have the docs tab. So in the docs tab, you can view various documentation for a variety of libraries. You'll notice they have quite a large array of SDKs. They have an iOS SDK, Android, JavaScript, PHP, Unity, etc., etc. Very thorough. I'm going to hit core again. And the first thing we're going to do is, we won't add any classes or anything in just yet. Let's first set up the Android SDK. So the thing we're going to do is we're going to download this right here. And let's see here, we want the SDK. And that's going to download right there. And while we're at it, let's just open up their guide. Then once we open up their guide, we're going to open up their quick start guide. And let's see here, there we go. So Android native existing project. And now we're just going to follow this tutorial right here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add this line to our dependency section in the build.gradle file. So the build.gradle file is located here in Gradle scripts, and we're going to open up the app module. So this section, it is really nice. It's similar to CocoaPods on iOS in that you can specify these libraries, and without having to actually import in the jars or anything, you can compile them. And it'll just download the library from the remote repository and install it in your application. Now we do have one local, we do have one jar that we need to install, and that's located in here. You'll notice that we have a ton of libraries in here, but the only one we need is the parse dash, let's see here, parse, where is it, parse dash 1.1.0 jar. So I'm going to copy this guy, and then I'm going to paste it into the libs folder of my project. Alright, so I'm going to paste the jar into the libs folder of my project. Then I'm going to grab this right here, compile file tree. And let's see here, I'm actually going to get rid of this guy. And now it's going to run. And okay, so the Gradle build just finished. And so let's go back to the tutorial here. Now we need to add some permissions. Let's add the internet and network state permissions. So to do that, we're going to open up our Android manifest.xml file. We're going to add these guys in. And now we need to copy these two lines right here, and we need to create an application. So to do this, we're just going to create a new class. We'll call this main, we'll call this photo share application. So the application contains all of the activities and fragments and everything else inside of your application. So because it's similar to an activity, we have to define it inside of our Android manifest.xml file. You'll notice that it corresponds to this root tag right here that's called application. In order to specify that we want to use the application we just created, we're going to add this android.name field right here, and we're going to specify that we want the photo share application. So to do that, we just do .photo share application, and the autocomplete takes care of most of the work for us. Alright, so now that we've done that, we're going to override on create, and we're going to add in these two lines right here. The first line enables the local data store. So what this does is it ensures that we can cache results from queries, and we can store data locally, so that if the user doesn't have network access, then they can still read or access some of their data. The next line actually initializes parse using two keys, the application key, let's see here, the application ID and the client key. So these are important, and you should be very careful with these keys, because if someone gets access to these keys, they can do lots of they can pretty much destroy your database. Let's now just copy this code right here, parse object, test object, and we're going to throw it in our main activity. And okay, so we're not getting any compilation errors. And now I'm going to run this code. I'm going to hop on over to the emulator. Okay, and while it loads, let's just go to the core tab. So this tab, it's going to remember that it contains all of the data that we're storing in Parse, or we can view all of the data that we're storing in Parse. And let me switch to the correct application. We want to go photo share Android. Okay, and there we go. We see that the test object has been created, and we have a row in our database. We have this foo variable right here that's of type string, and we'll notice that the contents inside of it is bar. You'll notice a couple of other fields. You'll see this object ID. This is useful when you want to find an object. You can just specify this ID. You can see the created at and updated at. These are just pretty self-explanatory. This is the date that the row was created, and this is the date that the row was updated. Then we have this field called ACL, and this is for specifying who can read and write this data. Right now it's set to public read and write, but later on we're going to change it up so that we have a more secure database. Alright, so ACL, by the way, is access control list. Okay, now I'm going to remove this guy right here by doing more drop class test object. Now that we know that we're able to save parse objects, we know that we've set up parse correctly, and we can proceed with the rest of these. We can proceed with the rest of this tutorial. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.